What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not.
Stolen valor. Two of the ugliest words in the English language. It's a term that means claiming military honor or service or medals that you didn't earn.
And let's just summarize the truth. Tim Walz said that he carried a weapon in war. He never went to war.
I'm retired Sergeant Major in the Army National Guard. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? When was this, what was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone?
Tim Walz nods along as an interviewer calls him a veteran of Afghanistan, is the headline.
Congressman Tim Walz, also a member of the Armed Services Committee and Veterans Affairs, Democrat of Minnesota, highest-ranking enlisted soldier ever to serve in Congress, enlisted in the Army National Guard at 17 and retired 24 years later as Command Sergeant Major and served with his battalion at Operating Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan.
He never went to war.
Served with his battalion at Operating Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan.
Because the stolen valor accusations are absolutely nonsense, baseless bullshit.
Tim Walz said that he didn't know his unit was about to deploy to Iraq when even his own press release at the time said that he knew exactly that. Tim Walz claimed to be a command sergeant major, even had it printed on his challenge coins, and he knew he never achieved that rank.
It seems like they want to target Democrats with military experience. How do you feel about that?
Well, I hope that's not the case. I think I add quite a voice to the Congress. I'm the highest-ranking enlisted soldier that's ever served there. And
it is just lies. It is just subterfuge. It is just a distraction to give something to the MAGA base in an effort to try to stop the excitement and the momentum of what will eventually be a Kamala Harris presidency with Tim Walz as the vice president.
So nice try, Republicans. Why don't you spend some time looking at your own presidential candidate, Donald Trump, and stop making things up about our next president, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
What is wrong with Walz? Serving in the military for 24 years in any capacity is laudable. It has to be one of two things, therefore. He's either imagined himself in Baghdad or Kandahar getting all the prestige of being the command sergeant major, or he wanted to burnish his record as some battle-hardened tough guy to boost his political future.
From Minnesota, Tim Walz, as the retired guardman himself and the highest ranking enlisted soldier to serve in Congress.
as a 24-year veteran of the Army National Guard and a retired command sergeant major. As a retired sergeant major in the Army National Guard.
Tim Walz is one of those everyday people. Command Sergeant Major.
I am a retired command sergeant major in the Minnesota National Guard.
Tim Walz claimed to be a command sergeant major. He knew he never achieved that rank.
I am a retired sergeant major in the Army National Guard.
Within days of the announcement, Walz has been caught out lying about his rank when he served in the U.S. National Guard, and also for claiming that he served in a combat zone. This is what is known as stolen valor.
Brigade Combat Team received alert orders in July 2005. Now, this is where you need to start paying attention. They received their alert orders on July of 2005. It should be known that Walz retired in May of 2005.
No. Days after the September 11th, 2001 attack on our nation, Mr. Walz re-enlisted in the National Guard for a 6-year commitment. He would later claim it was only 4. Alpha News, they're in Minnesota, they've obtained the paperwork. It was 6. So I don't know why he's misleading about that. But he signed up to stay in until 2007. 2007, not 2005.
July of 2005. It should be known that Walz retired in May of 2005.
In February of 2005, he filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission to run for Congress. 1 month later, in March, his own campaign acknowledged before he retired from the National Guard, he was still in the National Guard, that he knew he might be getting deployed to Iraq. They put out a press release titled, quote, "WALZ still planning to run for Congress despite possible call to duty in Iraq." And indeed, this is something that is done. Sometimes active duty National Guardsmen also running for office.
The 34th Brigade Combat Team received alert orders in July of 2005. They mobilized in September and trained throughout the fall before finally deploying in March of 2006, nearly a year after he had retired.
At that time, he said, quote, "As Command Sergeant Major, I have a responsibility not only to ready my battalion for Iraq, but also to serve if called on."
A year. This wasn't unit abandonment. Originally set to return in February 2007, the unit was extended 4 months as part of the president's disastrous surge strategy.
2 months later, in May of 2005, Mr. Waltz, the same one who 6 weeks earlier said, quote, "I have a responsibility to serve if called on," retired from the National Guard, effectively telling those who served under him, "Good luck in Iraq. I won't be there."
This wasn't unit abandonment.
This was years before his commitment was due to end. Now the media points to the fact that his unit did not receive the official alert orders to deploy to Iraq until July 2005.
July of 2005. It should be known that Waltz retired in May of 2005.
2 months after Waltz officially retired. But that doesn't change the fact that he clearly knew that a deployment was a possibility at the time he decided to bail. Nor does it change the fact that Waltz retired early. Those are facts that are not in dispute. He retired early, even by his own measure.
Mr. Tim Walz of Minnesota, who also happens to be the highest ranking enlisted service member to ever serve in the Congress as a command sergeant major.
I was reading recently to put this into perspective. When you make this promise, when they raise their hands to serve this nation, you're in it for the long haul. And the Veterans Benefit Administration is still paying out $73 a month to the daughter of a Civil War veteran.
Tell me about the Tim Walz you know.
24 years in the Army National Guard, rose to the rank of Command Sergeant Major, the highest rank for an enlisted officer in the history of the United States Congress, 240 years plus.
He continually claims that he's a retired sergeant major. He's not. He's a retired master sergeant.
Other things Governor Tim Walz served from, and there's the dates, he held multiple positions within field artillery. It goes on to say, and culminated his career serving as the command sergeant major for the battalion.
He isn't a sergeant major. He didn't, and it wasn't because he didn't, it wasn't for benefit purposes. That was unfortunately, he didn't complete the coursework because he never entered into it. It's a misleading.
A gentleman who served this nation 3 decades in uniform and has a distinguished career here in Congress. I'm proud to stand with you. And now is not the right time to draw down this land force. And I say that of both of us coming out of that force. It
is just lies. It is just subterfuge. It is
land force. And I say that of both of us coming out of that force.
This is what is known as stolen valor.